firefighters and patients he came into contact with after testing positive.
We have it totally under control. It's one person coming in from China.
We still have a low risk to the American public, but we want to keep it at a low risk.
I have today declared that the coronavirus presents a public health emergency in the United States.
Well, we pretty much shut it down coming in from China, but we can't have thousands of people coming in who may have this problem, the coronavirus.
Interesting. I think, still the topic of COVID and the way that the United States handled it is a hot ticket item. Like it's talked about a lot, and there's so much nuance to it as well. And I think this did a good job of looking at both sides of the political spectrum and how they addressed, the virus and also vaccines and going about that and how the public perceives it through media or lack thereof or their own political echo chambers, just all of it. I think it did a good job of identifying issues with the way that COVID has been dealt with and is still being dealt with. And I think, I just think it was really well done. You had a lot of really good sources in it, and it flowed logically, and it was just really nice to watch. So very well done.
Did as far as giving us a timeline of what happened, from March 2020 all the way through. I think that's important so we can see the events unfold through before our eyes and put things in perspective. I really liked how it was like March 2020, June, August, October, all the way, so we get a complete, comprehensive picture of just how bad things were. And I really like that narrative technique. So good job.
I thought this was one of the better documentaries chronicling the last 2 years. Just does a great job at presenting the facts, giving us those interviews from, the boots on the ground, people who have been dealing with it firsthand, and even beforehand, who have seen it, and really just giving it to us the way it is, the way it ought to be, unsensationalized, not very editorial, really, again, just seated in truth and in fact. And I think that's more important now than ever, as the documentary touches on, with so much misinformation out there, and at the rate misinformation is able to spread, it's important that we combat it with pieces like this, and share this one around and get more eyeballs on it, because it's super important and it's done really well. It's definitely worth checking out.
It's an excellent documentary. I mean, I can't believe the speed at which they told such a long, huge, complicated story. There was just all the way they compiled all the interviews, the news clips, they kept everything paste at a rapid, going. It took us beat through everything. It reminded us of the details of everything, and so, this is good because we need to remember this so it doesn't happen again. We need to remember this so we can climb out of it, because we're still in it. It's not as bad as it was, but we just don't want to go back there again. So this is good that this is all cut together and compiled and placed together in this way so that we could look back and see what happened and not repeat that. So excellent job, directing, editing, great score. They got all the right clips and all the right pieces, and all the experts they talked to were just excellent. Everybody really belonged on camera and really owned it and did a good job. So excellent work with this, man. I hope it gets out there. I hope it gets seen, because it is much needed.
It was incredibly well done and very surreal to take a walk down memory lane of when this pandemic had started to where we are now. I think that they paced it beautifully. Everything of how they started and the media clips that they were using, this was brilliantly edited. I really enjoyed listening to the doctors and the scientists speak about what their point of view was. And it was so, I guess it just, experiencing it with what we have experienced. You know, you go through the pandemic and you have moments of time spans that, well, this amount of time has gone by before this next thing has hit in the news, where you kind of have a little bit more time to digest it. But watching this from beginning to end with no time span, and how it was, well, this happened at first and this happened, and how it factually went through what was being reported in the news and the misinformation that we were getting compared to what the doctors and the scientists were saying, it just really made you stop and think about how incredibly surreal all of this was, and that we were going through this, and the struggles and the trials and the tribulations that our healthcare professionals had gone through, as well as the rest of the population that we're still going through, to be perfectly honest. I think that the media clips were really selected well. Sorry, I'm checking my notes. It was very educational. And the part that made me laugh out loud was, yes, the day that Lysol has to put a warning label on their disinfectant is just, it was funny, but it was so sad at the same time. But yeah, thank you for making this film. It spoke volumes. It was very educational, and it just kind of serves as a reminder of, as a nation, how important it is to have factual information so that we can all try to be on the same page.
Full of really great information. I thought this documentary did a great job of covering the way the pandemic unfolded during the first year. And I really appreciated the broad range of experts that are included in it. Like, we hear from everybody, including MDs, professors of psychology, political science experts, and it goes on and on. I thought they presented their information and opinions in a very logical, matter-of-fact, non-judgmental manner. And I like how this documentary tackles a lot of the misinformation that has been rampant during this time. Specifically, I love that section on conspiracy theorists. And people who believe in them. It really helped me understand why people are inclined to seek this kind of information out and why they believe in the things that they do. Overall, I thought this was a very interesting and important documentary, and I learned a lot.
I felt that the film was quite organized in its approach to breaking down the timeline and information of the first year of the pandemic. I also thought that the film equally shared footage of doctors and scientists in the field, doctors and scientists who were spokespersons for the administration, and then politicians. I think that the film largely focused on misinformation, of course, and how that affected our pandemic response. And the interview subjects shared slightly differing perspectives on how and why the misinformation spread in the way that it did, and how that correlated to the way that we as a country and community chose to respond. And I think that what stuck out to me at the end of the film in particular was how the misinformation could not really be pinpointed to social media or a one administration, but rather to us and our nature as human beings, and our lack of trust in science and one another and our political system, and how our willingness to believe incorrect information or information that better suits us and our ideology has ultimately led us down this path, and what might we need to change to avoid or have a better response to a situation like the pandemic in the future.
Track and Trace was really well done. We got a lot of information from a lot of different voices, which was great because you get a lot of different perspectives from different healthcare professionals, experts in the scientific fields, etc. But you also get interviews and news coverage and footage and stuff like that from from that time. And I think that the tracker with the COVID cases and the COVID deaths that kind of happened periodically throughout the film did a really great job of just really tracking like where we are throughout this year that they're covering. And yeah, it was really interesting to kind of get that replay of how everything unfolded from beginning of 2020 to the end of the year. And obviously so much has happened since then, but it just really shows like how much has happened in just those first 12 months. And I like what they said about how there's two outbreaks. There's the outbreak of COVID, and then there's the outbreak of misinformation. And both of them are deadly, which I thought that was such a great, soundbite to have, because it's absolutely true. And it's almost like a losing battle, because you can present people with scientific, proven, peer-reviewed information, but if they are already mistrusting or distrusting of the source, there's no getting through to them. So it's just really tricky when you can't. People don't trust where the information is coming from, but they are trusting it from people who are giving them incorrect information. So you're kind of battling on multiple fronts in order to keep everybody safe. And I just really don't envy anybody who is directly in that position. It's really, really difficult. So I thought this was really well done. I think that they were able to take a ton of information and really compress it into a 1-hour film. And I know that wasn't an easy feat to do, but I think they did a great job of tracking and tracing all of this information.